Good evening, AMRoC community. It's good to be with you tonight. For those who don't know, I'm Scott, and I'll be here for the first Friday this week. Very excited about it. I've got a good friend with me tonight. We'll be talking about some great topics, including being willing to pivot, which is something that we've talked about a lot. If you joined us for our Roboticon Digital event this year, it was something that a lot of our guests talked about because it's really kind of an important topic. You think you know what your customers want or what your fans want or whatever, and you might be wrong. And so being able to pivot is important. So that'll be one of our topics. We've got a lot going on. We'll talk about what's coming up at the end. But for right now, hello.
Hey.
I'm going to let you go ahead and introduce yourself to the audience, as I tend to do.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, Scott. My name is Keagan, Henson. I wear multiple hats. I have a company called BriteBee.com, also a partner of Height Digital, which we'll probably talk a little bit about today as well. And then I also have a company called Insurance Maestro, which is an insurance agency. So doing lots of different things in the world right now. So it's crazy times.
And that's one of the reasons that you and I have gotten along so well for so long, is always doing stuff.
Yeah.
Sometimes connected, sometimes not.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's been fun. We met each other was it 2019 at a conference in New Orleans?
I think it was 18, because I think 19 was in Toronto. 18? Yeah. I think 29, because 21 was digital, 20 was digital, 19 was Toronto, 18 was New Orleans. So,
man, lots has gone on since then.
Indeed. We had a pretty straightforward conversation about what you were up to back then. And since then, there have been some pivots. There have been some changes, right?
Yeah, no, definitely. There's been a lot of pivots, actually. So lots of things have changed since then. I remember one of our conversations. You were talking to me about podcasting, and we were talking a lot about SEO and different things. And you were one of the ones that really encouraged me to get into creating more content. I don't know what you probably don't know. I may have told you, but when you talked to me about that, I went out and created like 40 podcasts within like a month and a half, and I almost died. It was so much content, and I was like, I will never do this again. And but it, we were solving. It was actually one of our first pivots. Was we were not able to get in front of people like we wanted to, and so we were literally door knocking, trying to reach people, and the people are people that we were trying to reach. It was very difficult to do door knocking, and so we actually decided to do more podcasting, and so we did like email campaigns, and we were asking people to be on our show, and we were getting responses like first email. And that's really how we started off our first pivots.
Okay. So I knew that you had gotten into podcasting. I didn't know that you tried to start out with a crazy idea of CES or doing 64 all at once.
Yeah,
that's a lot of that's a lot of content. And speaking as somebody who during we do 112 in 4 days, I totally understand how insane that experience is.
Yeah, well, and I was editing them and hosting them and everything, so it was crazy. But one of the things that I learned from it was, first off, there's plenty of other ways to get in front of people, and a lot of the times you have to tailor it to what is the one thing that people want, and how can I get in front of them, and how can I have a conversation? Because really, that's what I wanted, right? Was just a conversation. And it was, hey, we've got a podcast, love to hear your story, and boom, people were like, yeah, I'd love to talk about myself. So we just kept getting really good responses from it. That podcast is no longer here, but I mean, honestly, we created it to break down a barrier for us. And I love to say that content breaks down barriers. And you've got to create content that is for breaking down barriers, not creating content that's just for nothing. There's got to be major purpose behind it, and you have to believe about in the barrier that you're trying to break down.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm a member of a lot of podcast communities out there, and especially last year and a half, there are a lot of people who have decided they want to give it a shot. And I can't tell you how many times people will post, like in a Facebook group, I want to create a podcast. What should my topic be? Incorrect. That's the wrong way. If you don't already know why you're doing it, the what does not matter.
No, not at all. And I think one thing that I've learned quite a bit with just creating content is it may last for a long time, and sometimes it may be for a short-lived purpose. It may not, some people are like, oh, I'm going to have this podcast for years and years and years. Well, you may not.
True.
It may be you're creating content for a specific purpose for the next 3 to 6 months, and then you move on to the next thing. It may have helped you accomplish what you need to accomplish at that time, and then you learn enough and you move to the next thing. Consistency is absolutely important. And I think that's where it's really difficult to maintain that level. You can't maintain 40 podcasts unless you're doing it full time with all the sponsors and everything else and the team behind you. But it definitely can teach you quite a bit and help you learn about your customer quickly.
Yeah, for sure. And, we just hit our 14-year anniversary of doing the show like 2 weeks ago. And
great.
We are the exception, not the rule.
Sure.
We're quickly, as even some of the longer running ones start to fade out, we're quickly becoming one of the oldest constantly produced shows.
Yeah.
And that's what that's the point. One of the hosts that I like is running a 7-day, 1 episode a day special on American heroes for the 4th of July week.
Yeah,
cool. And that's it. And, with one of the organizations I work with, we're doing something similar for next year. But that content might stick around, right? We've got a friend who on First Friday 2 months ago. So for those of you who have been watching these regularly, AFterShocks, I've got an interview with them from 2011. There's nothing left of that that's relevant. But it's still out there, which is interesting.
Yeah, what's hard is creating evergreen content, and really that's what takes a lot of focus and a lot of intention behind the content that you're creating, is trying to create evergreen content. Things that can last for a long period of time. And there's content that doesn't last for a long period of time, and it's not supposed to. Right. But I think it's really important. A lot of the times we go into it, and especially when we were pivoting and trying to figure out, okay, what do we do in our marketing to make this all work? You just go do it, right? And I think a lot of the times that's where it's sometimes unsustainable, because your intention is to go do it and see what happens, versus like asking the question, how could we make this work for a long period of time and keep it going, keep the flywheel going. Right. And so I think intention and creating evergreen is really important when considering the content that you're trying to create.
Yeah, for sure. And also being able to capture a moment, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
That takes a lot of work.
It does.
It's not something that just happens on the fly, right. You are having to craft these, and especially when it's live or when if you're trying not to do a lot of post-production, you have to be really planned out to make this happen. Now, I mean, if you want to talk for, like 2 hours, like Rogan or something, right?
Sure.
You probably capture quite a bit of things, but a lot of us don't have that amount of time, nor probably
Right.
the money to fund that.
Yeah. Yeah. Spotify didn't write us a blank check.
Yeah, exactly. So we have some limitations at that time.
Right. And that's, if you're, whatever it is you're doing, whether it's content creation or, whatever you set out to do, even with through the first of several pivots for you, whatever it is that you got to do, knowing that there will be limitations and taking that into consideration, that it may not be for everything. You don't have to go into everything. There is beautiful art made with sand, right? That that is definitely a permanent installation.
Yeah, exactly.
So
No, definitely. And, that's, and, fortunately and unfortunately, I think that's been my life over the last, 3.5 plus years. Is there's been a lot of pivots, there's been a lot of learning, and there's been a lot of, hanging on to things that maybe shouldn't have been hung on to for so long, and then things that should be held on to for longer. So lots of things like that. Within life and within business.
for sure. So let's talk about some of your pivoting, because I know started out with a platform that allowed insurance agents to communicate better with potential customers, and now you and I are having a conversation off air about marketing for the show. So I mean, that is like a PayPal level pivot. So
yeah. So as a prideful entrepreneur, these things are sometimes hard to talk about because your first idea doesn't always work, right? And so so BriteBee started out as a technology company, and we still have that technology, but it's been a free service ever since COVID hit. We made a free service, and so it's a marketplace for people to find insurance agents to get the quotes that they're needing, but also to be able to see the trust factor, the reviews, the ratings. It's kind of like the Angie's List for the insurance world. That being said, this has been a hard product to not only sell but also just get out to market, for many reasons. First off, if you don't know anything about insurance is one of the most expensive cost per clicks, marketing terms in any kind of paid advertising. So you talk about hard to enter into this marketplace. It's very difficult. We've had some success with the SEO piece, but it's a very long game strategy. And what we found was that was great, but it did not pay the bills at the moment. And so we were getting a lot of people telling us how much they loved our marketing and our creative. And we had to figure out what do we do because we're running out of money. And so we actually started a marketing arm off of BriteBee just to help us pay the bills, help us pay the payroll. And so that happened, and we did that for many years. And then now we're actually have merged these services and partnered with Height Digital, which is a really a worldwide company that we've actually now are working with and providing services with. So we're really excited about that. But yeah, there's been a lot that's happened since then, and there's been a lot of struggles. Having a technology company and spinning it into some kind of marketing arm is not always ideal because it wasn't set up and structured that way. And so there's a lot of challenges that we faced because of that. but we have been digging ditches so that we can survive.
Sure. And that's, pivots come in all shapes and sizes. Sometimes it's because uh, you need in the short or long term to keep going. Sometimes it's
Yeah,
because you accidentally created something, even as a demo, and
yeah,
people are, yeah, that's better.
yeah,
Uh, I would like that, please. which
yeah,
is which
exactly.
is the story of PayPal, right? And
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
you know, you have to be open to it because today you wouldn't know any of those guys' names because an encryption company wasn't going to light the world on fire the way PayPal literally
Right.
changed the way we think about banking.
Right. No, and I think I said pride a moment ago, and I think pride gets in our way quite a bit. Um, and there's a lot of pressure especially in the, and I think you can agree to this, like in the startup community and in just the technology and growing things. And everyone says, well, most people don't ever make it. They never
Mhm,
get to an exit. They die, and that's absolutely true. um,
mhm,
that being said, there's a lot of terms out there, like scaling, and the grind and all of these different things that everyone, it's like you get an award for doing it
mhm,
longer, and or the sacrifice and everything else. And there's nothing wrong with sacrifice, but one of the things that I have just learned some of the hard way is, um, a lot of the things we hear are just not true. There's it's taken out of context. People don't give the full context of things, and so what happens is we take one thing someone says or one piece of quote, let's just say encouragement that they give us, and we take it and run with it. And sometimes it's out of context, and we don't know the ramifications of what that will cause in the future. And so that actually that happened to me. And so one of the things that I learned through starting, I've started like 4 or 5 businesses in the last 6 years roughly. Been able to sell 2 of them, and had some struggles and one of them, and working on the other 2, growing. So it's definitely been a challenge. Honestly, the last 3.5 years have probably been the hardest years of my life in growing any business, and it's really made me take a different look and a different approach to growing businesses. So one of the things that I learned through this, and I'm just really passionate about sharing this, is just because I feel like people get in this rut of you have to do it one way, or you have to do it the way that you see other people doing it, or how they talk about that they did it, and or how successful people look, or everything else. And all of that is very relative. um, is I didn't give myself enough margin for error. And giving yourself margin for error is something you have to do as an entrepreneur, or you will suffocate yourself. I like to say that it's like playing Russian roulette with your soul, because every day you're working so hard to create something, you're working so hard to grow something, and you get kind of caught up in this world that people live in, of the success-driven world, and you start burning cash quicker. You think that if you spend more money, that you'll make more money. There's a lot of lies out there. You think that
mhm,
if you build it, they'll come. That's a good one. That makes no sense at all, but a lot of people believe it, and sometimes I believed it. Like, oh, this is it. Like, if we build this, this is what's going to change everything. What they didn't tell me is, how long it was going to take to build, and how many challenges it was going to take to have to build it. And so, giving yourself margin for error is really important. And I think whether you have a business and you're looking to take on new opportunities, new risks, every opportunity provides some kind of risk. Or if you're starting a new business, really think about the margin of error that you have, and how many if I take this risk, like, will I be able to sleep at night? Will I be able to sleep at night every night? Or am I going to be worried every single day that if I do not, if I don't make every decision the right decision, and if one of my team members makes a poor decision with a customer or whatever, we're going to die. That's a really poor way to live, and some people would encourage you to live that way.
Mhm.
And I live that. I lived that for quite a while, and just recently, I've just my life has changed dramatically to say I don't want to live that way, and there's no reason why I have to. And so, it puts a lot of strain on me. It puts a lot of strain on my family. It puts a lot of strain on the team, and to live in this, like no margin world, and a lot of that's self-inflicted, right? but but in the end, it's something that we as entrepreneurs, business owners, do quite a bit of, because we don't think about what will happen to us, or we don't think about how many mistakes are we going to have to make to get this right. And so those are hard things. They're really hard things. I mean, I think you've probably experienced it too, right?
I apologize. I lost that last sentence. Everything was
Yeah,
perfect right
no.
until you asked me a question.
No, it's good. No, I was just saying, like, you experience the same thing, right? I
Yeah.
mean, it's it's part of it.
Yeah.
You've
I
definitely
mean,
had some pivots in your world too.
yeah, um, longtime listeners of the show know that I have been involved in two big business builds, and one we shut down a year and a half ago, and I'll tell you, I stuck it out longer, and you and I have talked about this. Uh, stuck it out longer than I should have,
Yeah.
um, to my own personal detriment, because I didn't want to.
Yeah.
I didn't want to have a job, or
Hmm.
whatever stupid prideful dumminess was happening in my head. I stuck out way too long. It was a huge mistake, and letting that go and moving on was the best decision we've made in years. So,
And you know what's crazy is that, how much freedom did you feel after you actually made that hard decision?
oh, so much for so many reasons.
Yeah, that's what's crazy. I mean, I've made some of the hardest decisions I've had to make in business and in life over the last months, and it has actually led to a lot of good things, a lot of good things. Even just my new partnership with Height Digital, and
Mhm.
and growing in a different way, and having different support, and different partners, and uh, making better financial decisions. Uh, Man, it's been hard, so challenging, but man, the freedom and the weight that has been lifted off of me is surreal. Honestly,
Yeah.
it's quite
I,
crazy.
I, the reason I didn't want to make the decision was over a fear of loss of freedom.
Exactly, right.
And what an inverse it was,
Yeah,
because making the decision, yes, I work for some, yeah, okay, but I happen to go to a great company that has tons of freedom built in.
yeah,
I'm still mostly autonomous. I just, if I'm gonna take a Tuesday off, I used to just take a Tuesday off. Now I just tell somebody I'm going to take Tuesday off.
yeah,
And
right.
I was legitimately worried about that loss of freedom, and boy,
Yeah,
was it freeing to make the decision. So yeah,
yeah. Yeah, no, and that's, I mean, that's a thing with even our recent, merging of a brand, and clients and different things with High Digital. The same thing, like, am I gonna lose my freedom because I'm now partnering with someone bigger and better, and all this thing. And finally I came to it, and I was like, look, you can't continue to go the way you're going because you want freedom. You want more freedom. This is a good thing. This is a good thing what you're doing, and it's going to give you more freedom and give you more opportunity to do the things you love to do, in personally and in business, right?
Yeah.
And that's what's crazy, is that, you know, sometimes these hard and challenging times and pushing through and grinding through, painful, but can lead to really great things. And I think that's where, as entrepreneurs, business owners, whatever we want to call ourselves, right? I think it's really important for us to understand. It's very important for us to go through those challenging times, and it's very important for us to make it out by actually making hard decisions and being humbled by it, but not saying, "Well, I'm done. You know, my identity's gone." Whatever. That that is the wrong outlook. We have got to be able to say, "Man, look what I got." Usually, I mean, you can get a Harvard degree, you know, by what you've learned, and you can apply that. You can and apply that in something else as you pivot. And so I think that's what's really important for people to understand. It's so hard because a lot of it's, you know, well, it's failure or whatever. Okay, whatever. Who cares? No one, and that's what I had to figure out, is that no one else cares around me about that. They're not sitting. Sometimes I think that everyone's sitting around, you know, wondering, well, I wonder if Keagan's succeeding or not. Right? Like
watching from the sidelines, going, "Oh, it looks like it might be a failure." Like there's a play caller above you somewhere.
Exactly. And you know, I put myself on this this clock, this imaginary clock that was just ticking down, and it's like a horror story. You know, it's just a horror movie, and it's a horrible way to to live. It's miserable. And you know what's crazy is that I had an employee ask, I had him come down where I'm at in Oklahoma City, and honestly, this really spurred on a lot for me, because I wanted him to come so that he could learn and I could invest in him. And, you know, sometimes you just can't do that over Zoom or over some video. And so had him come down. And one of the first questions he asked was, he was just like, "Man, so do you just love what you do?" And I looked at him and I was like, "No, I'm miserable." And he looked at me like, "Oh." And it was amazing because it completely changed. I was like, I don't want to ever answer that question again. I don't want to ever have to do that, because what I figured out quickly was that it was not because of other people that I was miserable. It was because of the choices that I made. And so, which is great, honestly, because you know that you can actually change that. You know, when there's like a lot of other people involved, you're like, "Oh gosh, how am I going to make this work?" Right. But in the end, you figure out like, "Oh, this is my fault. Like I made these decisions. All right, well, what do I do to change them?" Yeah, it's going to be really hard. I'm going to cry a lot getting it done. But what am I going to do to make it different? And that's where I'm at. It's a lot better place to be.
Yeah, for sure. And you know what you were saying a little while ago about when we were talking about giving up freedom. The same year that we were at Collision together, we had the opportunity to have a venture capitalist on the show. It was the one and only time we've ever had a VC on the show, and you know, he was talking about how, you know, sometimes there's those fears, especially with a startup, of letting go of control. And you know, he made the comment, you know, sometimes you hear other VCs say, "Would you rather have 25% of a pie that's 10 times the size of the thing you have 100% on?" But he said it also applies to other things. There, sometimes making the hard decision can, yes, maybe you'll only have 25% of, but you also only have 25% maybe of responsibility and pressure and all the other things, because you've brought somebody in, you know, you've made a change, you've done something where the thing you're in charge of, you're good at, and you've got somebody else who's good at the other thing who's taken on that responsibility so that you're not necessarily wearing as many hats.
Right.
To go back to the thing you said at the very top when you
Yeah, no,
introduced yourself.
absolutely. Yeah. And what's crazy is I'm trying to put myself in, even though I like to wear multiple hats,
Mhm.
I'm working to put myself in a position where that's all I do. Now, I'm not saying that I'm there yet by any means, but the idea though is that if I can put myself in that situation, I'm going to enjoy it 10 times more and I'm going to be much more effective in what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Versus wearing the wrong hats, and that's definitely a challenge, especially when starting businesses and everything else, because you're everything, right? I mean, you're everything. You're the accountant, and you're like, oh gosh, please, I hope no other
I hope the
spill comes
IRS doesn't
in.
find out.
I hope the IRS. I don't even know what I'm doing, and
Yeah,
so
exactly.
yeah, right. Like, did I even fill out the right paperwork? And so yeah, no, all of that being said, but I will tell you one of the things that I've been really thinking a lot about is finite purpose versus infinite purpose. And a lot of the times we think about the finite things. We think about the revenue, we think about the money that we're going to make or how we're going to pay ourselves and all these different things, which are important things. But a lot of the times we don't think about the infinite purpose, which is, I'm doing this because I want to be able to see my family more. I want my boys to be able to grow up in a business that they can actually experience it and learn from. Um, you know, I want to be able to see my wife more. I want to be able to spend
Sure.
more time with her, not less time, right? And a lot of the times we, as entrepreneurs, we don't think about those things, and it's really important, I think, for us to have an infinite mindset to know that even if we lose sales one day, what are we truly trying to reach? So if we only get 25%, but it helps us get to that infinite purpose, man, that's 10 times better than getting 75% and being miserable every day. And so
Yeah.
it's harder said than done, right? Like when you look at it on paper, you're like, oh, I'd really like that one. But it doesn't always work out that way. And so I think really structuring your understanding of what is an infinite purpose versus what is finite, and things that are going to be ever changing, right? No matter what you're doing, sales are going to go up, sales are going to go down, your income may go up, it may go down, you may take a risk that works out really well, it may not work out really well. But the deal is that if you structure that, if you structure it around, well, my infinite purpose here though is something that honestly I can control. I can say, like, I'm going to spend more time with my family no matter what happens, right? Or I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do that, or whatever. I think it can be really really powerful to be able to have that mindset.
Yeah, for sure. Um, I I love that mentality, and it is like you said, it's one of those things that a lot of times we forget about. That yes, okay, I've got a business goal, but I don't to hate everything. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
when-
and yeah, and I'm
oh,
I'm
I
changing
may
the
have gone away for a
whole,
second. Yeah,
I'm changing the whole lens of what I look through. I'm now asking myself the question, okay, I let me tell you, I don't know why, but I have this tolerance for like major risk taking, and it can get me in some great places and get me some major trouble. Um,
I was
but
going to say that
yeah,
good and bad. It's definitely a
it's
double-edged
good and
sword.
bad, like major tolerance. I think my wife would prefer that I have less tolerance for it all. Um,
Sure.
but that being said, you know, one thing that I figured out from that is I've been asking myself the question of, does this give me freedom or does this make me a slave? And
Sure.
And what I have found is there's so many times where I put myself in situations where it looked like the best opportunity. And maybe it was a great opportunity, like number wise, but I was a slave every freaking day to the business. And it was like, oh, I've already worked, 9 hours. I better put another 5 to make sure that, we get this done, and, everyone wants to say like, yeah, I work longer or whatever. And there's a lot of people who work a lot shorter hours and a lot smarter. And that's what I'm trying to do. But that said, I'm just really changing my mindset, to say, does this free me? If I do this, I was looking at acquiring another company last month, and we went through some of the due diligence, figured out a couple of things, and honestly, it was kind of one of those things where deep down, I really wanted to take it on, say like, okay, like this is good, we can take this on, whatever. But then I had to really start asking myself the question: does this free me? Even though like acquiring a business, oh yeah, it brings some more revenue and all this stuff, but does it free me? Like for me personally, is it going to free me, or is this going to put me in a position where I feel like that I'm going to have to just work even more to make this opportunity a great opportunity? And I decided that it was one of the reasons we decided to not do it was for that simple purpose was, okay, this doesn't give us freedom. This is, though it may be a great opportunity for someone, this is not the thing that's going to give us freedom. And so, just been really looking at everything through that lens, and it's different.
And it led to some pretty interesting interesting changes for you, and some
Yeah.
that are making me happy because I always like working with you, and being able to work together on some marketing stuff is a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, definitely. And the switch and partnership with High Digital has been great because it was a decision that it allowed for freedom. It allowed for a huge opportunity and growth, which is happening, but it allowed for freedom. And that's what's so great is being in, as an entrepreneur, I think it's really important to partner with people who have that same mindset. And that's one thing that's extremely difficult is partners. Like
Yeah.
partners are some of the greatest things and some of the worst things ever. So it's really
Yes.
important to have great partners, and to have great support systems so you can do the things that you want to do and that you're really great at and excel at.
Sure. And of course, making sure that you have the right partners so that they don't make things worse, instead of making things better. I
Yeah.
As I'm saying this, in the wings down at the bottom, I am watching Terry nod her head and smile because we absolutely went through this. I'm gonna. Are you good to come in, Terry? Okay, because we went through this as an organization
Yeah.
of having the wrong partners and ending up in a bad place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, this has been great. I so appreciate you being here to share all this, Keagan. It's fantastic. I've been nodding through most of it, I think. Hopped on a
Yeah.
little
You
late,
have.
but it all resonates. We do, Scott may have told you earlier, we do an equity and entrepreneurship program at AMRoC Fab Lab where we take very early stage entrepreneurs, people who may be working other jobs and have an idea for a business. And, how do you turn that idea or a side hustle into a real job? But then the question is, like you said, is this freeing you from other things, or is it making your life more complex, or sometimes a business idea might be a really cool idea, but it may not be a great thing to be doing right now in your life.
Yeah,
So this
absolutely.
great conversation, and we actually had a student in our program early on who is she's the queen of pivoting. She's brilliant at it, and it was so much fun to watch. And if she's watching, she knows who she is, and when she watches, she will know who she is. She came in with one idea, and and as she listened and went through everything, she was so open-minded about changing that and making it into something manageable, right?
Yeah.
And something that would work. And it was just a wonderful thing to watch. And then we've had other people who have a real hard time letting go of the initial idea they came in with. And they're just so married to it. And nobody's going to prove them wrong that this is what they're going to do. And even though you can have people come in and look at it and say, this may not be the best approach to what you're trying to do. You're making life so much harder for yourself.
Yeah.
And so I think that question, does this free me? Is this taking me in the direction I want to go? Is an excellent question to ask before you get too far involved.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, and a lot of times, unfortunately, us proudful entrepreneurs sometimes have to experience the hard way. I say the things. I feel like I'm in a counseling session of all the things that I've said. Like, it's been hard. It's been really hard. You guys can send me the bill afterwards. But that being said, I think it's really important for people to hear the other side.
Yeah.
A lot of times we interview people who've had it, they've made it or whatever. And I would say that I'm in the learning stage still. I've had some great successes and I'm very thankful for that, or I probably wouldn't be here right now. But that being said, I've also had some major challenges that I've had to work through. And I think it's really important for people to hear both sides, of course, but sometimes also being able to say no. Nope, this is nope, not going to do it. Like when people say like, yeah, you gotta sacrifice the next 5 years of your life. I'm like, I'm starting to think about that differently. I used to think, oh, okay, 5 years, that's all it is, right? And then I've got all these other people around me, like my wife, my kids, and my family and other things. And I'm like, but they have to sacrifice 5 years too. Like, what am I missing? What am I going to miss in 5 years? And doesn't mean that you can't be successful. It doesn't mean you can't take major opportunities and risks and everything else, but you have to be able to do it with that infinite purpose to understand that, okay, this is why I'm doing this. And I can't give up my soul for it. So there's so many other greater things to live for than this every day. Some may not agree with that. That's my personal opinion.
Well, I think it's one that resonates,
Yeah,
especially with people who have it.
No, I totally agree. I mean, it's the things we're doing now with the Fab Lab, even though it's a nonprofit, it's an entrepreneurship effort, and we didn't do a lot of the things we're doing now because we were raising a family and it wasn't the right thing in our lives. And our kids are grown now, and now we can look to it. Yeah. And I was just having a conversation with a few people in our program yesterday about things take time. Everything takes time. Everybody wants everything to happen right away.
Of course.
And there's a balance between, part of the conversation was, get out your minimum viable product, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And everybody's like, well, got to do that. But then you tell us to sort of slow down. It's like, well, yeah. So there's a balance, right? Sure. Get it out there, watch it, pace yourself, and proceed with calculated caution.
Exactly. Exactly. And also, and that's where I said, like, know your margin of error. Like, do you have margin for error? And that's, what one thing that I did horribly was we got the MVP. All right. Got the MVP. First off, it was not minimum. It was not the minimal, which honestly at the time I didn't even know. Right. I thought it was because my dream was so much bigger. So, and it wasn't that, so it must have been minimal. But yeah, so that was the one thing. And then I hired way too quick. You put your trust and your faith in other people to help you grow your business. And that is okay. You want to have wonderful people on, but you can't put that type of pressure on people to say, okay, look, guys, we've only got this much runway. We just started, we got this much runway. It's up to you guys to help me get this done. That just doesn't work for most people.
Or we may all be homeless by Thursday.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and like when people start hearing that, I mean, I had one person who's been with me for a long time. She was like, yeah, I mean, she was crying every meeting because we were just talking about death. Like, we're going to die. We're going to, we got to do this or we're going to die. And I mean, it just becomes very stressful for people. And, I'm like the worst case scenario guy. So I'm always projecting the worst case and working to never get there. Right. But I'm telling people like, okay, guys, I mean, listen, we could die tomorrow. And everyone's like, we're going to die tomorrow. And I'm like, well, man, we're not going to die tomorrow, but I mean, it could be a month. So, that is something, because of my decisions, it caused a lot of stress and strain on other people. And so, which then caused a ton of stress on me too. Right. And so, we wouldn't be as effective. It left people in some confusion. Vision was always, that pivoting. That's one thing that's hard, is that if you have other people with you, it's one thing to pivot by yourself or with your partner. It's another thing when you've got team members who are working so hard to this vision, and then you go, oh, by the way, we're changing.
Yeah.
And now you figure out, oh crap, the people that I just hired, they're not the right people for this.
Yeah.
And then what I didn't do well was I did not pivot them away from it. I kept thinking that this other dream will just continue, but we'll just use this money to funnel it and keep it going. Well, the deal is that one business couldn't support everything, and all the other labor that was involved. So that definitely put a challenge in front of us.
Yeah, but you have a really great gift of being able to look at all that and to draw lessons from it and to apply them in your life. And that is like the biggest thing that, I mean, people have trouble with that. Your proudful entrepreneur thing that you talked about earlier, where it's like, I'm just going to keep going down this track. I'm going to keep molding this into my success story no matter what. And we're going to come out on the end of it fine. And it's okay to say, well, it might be a good idea, but that was a really stupid approach I took to it,
Yeah.
And it frees you. Again, you're back to that freedom thing. That frees you once you can start saying that, okay, that I got to rethink this. This isn't the right way we want to do it. It's okay. We're going to move forward. It's not the end of the world, right? And even when it does seem like the end of the world, we all know that we've been close to the end of the world the last couple of years.
Yeah.
So we know that we're resilient. People are resilient, and but being able to draw from that, and you become more resilient by being able to draw those lessons. So great experiences. Thank you for sharing all those.
Yeah, no, send me the bill. Totally. I mean, I told my wife, I'm like, hey, it's been so painful. Like, tell whatever you need to tell me right now. Just tell me. I can take it.
Well, I'd like to actually have you come back and speak to our next cohort that's starting up in August. And I think that would be a great conversation to have with them before they get too far into all of this.
Yeah.
So I'd love to have you come in and Zoom in or whatever and have a conversation with people. And I think you'd find it interesting. It's a really interesting program because they're all people. They're not. One of the things that sets our program apart is that these are not tech businesses, right? So these are not exclusive to tech. It's everyday businesses. It's hair salons and automotive places and ideas that people have for product. Fried chicken. Oh my gosh. It's Buffalo Bites and waffle cones. They're absolutely wonderful waffle bowls. So I mean, like really cool stuff. Yeah, but these are livelihoods, right? And so when you're looking at livelihoods, all these things you mentioned are important, right? Because it's make it or break it for your family. So, how do you want to make it?
Well, and I'll tell you one thing that, and then I'll be quiet. But one of the things that I got in my head, I remember where I was sitting, and someone was talking. And they said, there's just two questions. Well, there's really one decision you have to make. Do you want a lifestyle business, or do you want a high growth business? Like I was like, okay, those are my two. And well, it's like, okay, well, what am I going to pick? And high growth sounds really good. Lifestyle sounds like complacent. Like I'm just sitting on the couch every day, feeling sorry for myself. So of course, I'm raising my hand, like high growth all day long. Right. And I started, over 3.5 years or more, and started figuring out, oh, hold on here. Maybe I don't want to be in that world. Maybe I'm want to do something, create a machine that actually helps me drive the lifestyle that I really wish to live. And that's not, always being rich or whatever that may be. That's by no means. I mean, it could be the freedom of time. It could be, not having to work a 9-to-5 job every single day or whatever it may be. Maybe it is working a 9-to-5 job. Who gives a flip? And so, so that is one thing that I kind of believed for a while and then started figuring out, okay, this is perfectly fine either way you go. And honestly, the lifestyle business can be very good, and honestly, you could be a lot more profitable in the lifestyle business than a high growth. So
yeah, because there's that, there's that issue of, all right, so I'm pushing, but if you redline a car for a period of time, it will stop
yeah,
and probably catch
yeah,
fire. And
exactly.
unless the thing you're trying to produce is a fire, that's not that's not ideal.
What they should have asked me was, hey, do you want to burn a lot of cash really quick and be stressed out, or
24/7.
do you want to go slower and be happy and content with what you have? And I was like,
Or
I
do you
would've
want to
answered that
enhance your life?
differently.
You're right. Do you want to
Right?
enhance it? Is the business that you're doing going to add to your life, right?
Yeah, is it
instead of
gonna,
detract from?
yeah, and everyone says like, oh, I just want to be happy, like the pursuit for happiness. Like, okay, all right. Well, first off, life by no means is always a happy place, right? But one of the things that my dad said the other day, he was like, happiness is the contentment in all circumstances. And I thought that was very wise. Because when you try to define happiness, it's all over the board, right? I mean, we can go to YouTube and we can find a million different people talking about happiness and what it means. And I think that was a very good definition of happiness. Happiness is contentment in all circumstances. And can you find contentment in all circumstances, even when it's bad? Yeah, it's bad, but can you find contentment?
Sure.
And I think that's really important. And a lot of the times, the reason we can't find contentment is because of us, not because of other people.
And that's that time thing too, right? That's that
Yeah.
thing that take time. You need to take time to understand what you're doing, to understand everything around it. We need to, and obviously the internet, we're on the internet, but that contributes a lot to the issue, right? Everything is black or white and clear cut, or everything. Everybody has an opinion, which sounds like a fact, or something like that. And this is really a good reminder to sort of step back a little bit and get what you're doing and why you're doing it.
I was chatting back and forth with the former president of Chick-fil-A, and for some reason he was kind enough to answer my LinkedIn message. I'm not sure why. It wasn't because my profile was that amazing. And I asked him a couple questions. He said, he said, the only thing I can tell you is he said something about, don't listen to everyone. Like, there's so many opinions. When you know that you need to go do something, just go do it, and just go do it. And then you'll figure it out. But if you sit there and I've got 15 advisors and all these mentors, and everyone's got their own opinion about everything. And it's not saying not to get wisdom and to have discernment about things, but do it for the complex things, the things that are complex, and the things that hey, you know what? If I had 3 experts in the room with me, I bet I could solve this in 10 minutes versus me solving it in a week, right? But the other things, go make the decision, go do it, and then move on and see what happens, right? And then when you create a huge fire, bring in the expert for your complex problem.
Or try it, but keep the extinguisher nearby. Yeah,
exactly.
On that topic, somebody I was listening to earlier today said just because somebody's an expert doesn't mean they're an expert in everything, and you don't have to listen to everybody on every topic. Some people are very good at a financial thing, and I don't necessarily want them to give me their input on the state of the vaccines. You know what I mean? I'm not interested in their input. I would like to hear from a doctor. Right? So you don't have to take, just because somebody is an absolute expert on a topic doesn't mean you need to listen to them on everything, because it doesn't necessarily matter.
Exactly. Yeah. And what's unfortunate is that most people are not honest enough to say, look, I'm an expert in this one thing. I've done this thing really well. Now, these other 5 things that you're asking me about, I don't have any more wisdom than what you have right now from it. But a lot of them say, well, they've come into me, so I'll go ahead and give my opinion of it. And so I think that's what I even have to be careful, because it's easy for all of us to do, right? To project ourselves as an expert in all things, right? Especially when someone comes to us. And social media and everything else has made it so much easier to be someone completely different, right? I can go take a screenshot of something off of Google, put it on, and call it my own. And I'm the expert. So that's definitely something I would say to be really careful about as you're starting businesses and as you're continuing, is, the experts that you are having and the mentorship. You don't have to have a lot of them. Usually it brings a lot more confusion than clarity.
Yeah, in our program, we usually have a mentor who comes for each different topic and then shares their experience. And it usually comes across. And one of the things that I like to do is like, in my experience, this is what I have found. And I think that if we could start, using those sort of prefixes when we start to talk, it helps a lot. And the mentors we have and the folks that come in usually are speaking from their experience, and this is what they've learned, right? And this is what's for them. And it might be applicable to what other people are doing. And I think that helps a lot, because it also gives people, again, the freedom to choose among the choices and options and ways to do things. So
Sure. And you talking the other day, a week or so ago, about how if I don't know, I just go, I don't know, but I got somebody. That's my response to it. Not my floor of the building, but I've got somebody that does that. Hold on. And I make connections. And I got some of that from Terry.
Yeah, well, that's how you got here, Keagan.
I got someone.
Yeah.
That's exactly how Keagan got here. Yeah.
Oh, that's perfect.
Indeed.
Yeah. You have to, and that's why it's so important to build that network. One things that I grew up, my father was so good at is, he just had this network, and it wasn't that he talked to people every single day or whatever, but man, if you need to get something done, you knew you'd go to my dad, not because he could do it himself, but he knew exactly who could help him get it done. And I think that's really important to have those people around you. That's so much more important than having a bunch of mentors throwing around their opinions. And so I think that's really important to have that network that you can say, man, I've got people around me that I've invested in, that they've invested in me, that if I needed something, I could go to them and I could probably get it done. And so I think that's so important, and that takes time, and it usually takes a lot more than, going to a coffee and introducing yourself and calling that your network.
Yeah, for sure. In the old days of Radio Shack, I think we all remember the "You've got questions, we've got answers" slogan. One of the things that the company made abundantly clear internally was you didn't have to have the answer. You had to know how to find it or who had the answer, but you didn't have to know everything, because you can't. There's too much going on in any particular topic for you to have all the answers. But so long as you know how to find it, you're good to go.
Exactly. And I think entrepreneurs have to have that mentality. A lot of the times we, what you don't want to do is play the victim. If you throw the victim card of, well, this is happening to me or whatever else, what I like to say is, your circumstances are not usually what causes you to fail. It's lack of communication. And so a lot of the times, I mean, even if you don't have enough money, like you could go communicate, honestly, you could go communicate to someone in a bank and probably get something, or whatever. I don't recommend that. By the way. Disclaimer, don't always recommend that. Don't sign your name to everything a banker wants to give you. So that's happened. But that being said, like your circumstances are changing all the time. But if you're going to play the victim, you are going to die and be miserable. If you can communicate, it's amazing what you can accomplish and how much more runway you can have just by communicating. And so a lot of times when we're having struggles, we like to not communicate as much because we feel bad for ourselves, that this is happening to us, poor us. And so it's amazing though, when you communicate and you're having these very complex issues and you figure out, okay, I just communicated for 5 minutes and we've already solved the problem. And I've been struggling with this for months.
Yeah.
How in the world, how could someone be smarter than me? You know,
It wasn't that hard after.
I know, right? So it's definitely something that can change the game for you tremendously.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, I gotta say, I really appreciate you taking the time to have this conversation tonight, because this was great. I knew it would. I had faith in you. I knew this would be a good
I have faith in
conversation.
Scott, so
Right.
the circle of faith. Yes.
Right.
Before we let you go, how can people find out more about the things that you're up to?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm on LinkedIn, and I'll tell you, I've almost taken a sabbatical to some degree on LinkedIn, just because of everything going on in my life right now. But at the same time, I do talk to Scott quite a bit on LinkedIn.
Indeed.
So if you want to message me, feel free. It's just Keagan Henson. You can also text me at 405-673-2763. So feel free, if you always want to text me, I'm perfectly fine. And then also, I know that there's a lot of businesses, entrepreneurs, marketing is something that it can be really confusing at times, and it can be really great for you and your business. And so one of the things we created was a heightdigital.com /AMRoC. And if you want to go there, and if you want to just ever talk about marketing, or if you want to ever get an audit of your business and just kind of understand what are opportunities that are out there, paid advertising opportunities, digital design, whatever it may be, we're more than happy to talk a little bit more about that. There's no pressure by any means. I love sales, but I do not like pressuring people in sales. So we want it to be the right fit for you. And my heart is anything that we could help you with, we want to be able to do, but we want to make sure that you can sleep at night too. And so it's really important for us to see you succeed in what you're doing. So feel free, if you want to connect, if you want to if you have ideas and you're just trying to figure out what do I do next, I would love to share my little knowledge with you that hopefully will be what is the catalyst to grow you further.
And can you give that URL one more time for us?
Yeah.
I wasn't typing fast.
It's heightdigital.com.
And it's height is HITE, right?
HITE. Yep. Heightdigital.com /AMRoC. So we just put AMRoC on there and make it easy. So
HITedigital.com /AMRoC, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I got it.
Nice. So yeah. So we created that for you guys. And if we can be of a resource for you at all, please let us know. I love to brainstorm. I love discovery and to see how we can help. But I also love to say, this is not going to work. Like this will not work. I already know based on what you're doing right now, this is not going to work. The last thing I'll say is when you're considering marketing, the one thing you got to consider is the sales piece. A lot of people want to market, but they don't want to think about how am I going to sell the product. And so, when you're thinking about all this, start thinking about, okay, how do I pair marketing and sales together, not silo them. And so be thinking about those things. Keep going. Look at how you can free yourself, not enslave yourself to your business and make it a machine for you, and that doesn't work against you. So appreciate you guys having me on. Thank you for letting me share my experience, and really appreciate it.
Absolutely. It really was. It really was a pleasure. I'm going to ask you if you'll stay on for just a couple minutes.
Yeah,
definitely. So we can have a conversation after the show. But again, thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. Thanks.
Thank you for joining us for First Friday. We'll be back in August.
Absolutely. And it's been a lot of fun, and we'll see what we've got next month.